A brief message from your friendly neighborhood editing Jordan. We tend to try to keep things pretty PG-13 around here, but this is an improv podcast. So, who knows what we're going to say. Sometimes we throw in some swearing, some sexual content, and some violence. So, as a general warning, viewer discretion is advised. Also to be noted, the opinions stated about a certain tabletop role-playing game are just that, our opinions. We love the game and we like talking about it. So, any criticisms are really just all in good fun. All right, with that out of the way, let's get on with the show.
It's a new year. I am neutral towards that lady.
Oh no, you backslid!
I've evolved.
It's not a new year yet. He's freaking me out, guys. What is he talking about?
Levi, it's February.
We've revealed several times that we pre-record.
It's February, Levi.
I keep up the illusion.
Guys, send help. I don't know why they're acting like this.
It's February.
OMG, I love Valentine's.
Why is she Borat?
If I had to travel through a dungeon in real life, I think I'd want it to be a Best Western. What about you?
Do Best Westerns count as dungeons? Like, do they have dungeons?
Have you ever, think about it. If the Best Western was entirely empty, and you had to search for something within, and there were dangers between enemies and traps within, don't you think a Best Western would be, terrifying?
I think you could apply that to most buildings. I think that could apply to most any building, though.
Waffle House? Easy. It's like
That's
2
true.
rooms.
Yeah.
But does the difficulty scale based on how much square feet there is?
I would probably be more afraid to be alone in a Waffle House.
Is there more danger the less space there is to account for the less space?
Maybe, but
No, we're thinking about this the wrong way. Waffle House, it's like a bonfire in Dark Souls. Mm-hmm. It's a place of rest in between the dungeons.
Respite. Mm-hmm.
So the Waffle House doesn't change. It's actually just like it is in the normal world. There are people there cooking.
Well, that's because there's only one Waffle House. It's a liminal space, and all doors lead to the Waffle House.
And the chef is that one NPC that everyone loves because he's always there and he always talks to you and sees how you're doing before you leave.
Do you think the waitresses is like a dating sim?
No.
Oh.
The waitress is like the vendor who sells you items because she takes your order. The chef upgrades your gear by serving you meals that give you buffs.
All right. But then there's still the question. Is a great giant location like a Best Western more terrifying than a closed Wendy's? See, I think
is Wendy in the closed Wendy's, because that changes my answer.
I think it's not Wendy. I think it is a Baylor that resembles Wendy.
It's just a Baylor with a red yarn wig on
That's what I was gonna say.
Mm-hmm. I think that you find one Baylor in a Wendy's, and then I think the Best Western, every room has a number of zombies. So the question is, which is worse?
Which is worse, indeed. Well, it really depends because, if you're ready to go into a fight with a Baylor, you just got to fight that one Baylor. It'll take everything out of you to do it, but once you're done, and then it explodes,
and then it explodes, and you die.
But once you're done, and you don't have to do anything else after that. The zombies, that's a test of endurance. It depends on how much endurance you have because you got to keep going. That's a slog to get through that entire.
But that's what the Waffle House is for.
Precisely. But this is we're saying the Best Western is an entire level. You have to get through it. The Waffle House is on the bookends of the Best Western.
I thought there was a Waffle House in the Best Western somewhere.
No, that's only if you're going for the final Best Western dungeon. That one's so big that they do have one in the lobby, and you start from one side of the Best Western moving towards the other.
Is this going to be the new enemy of the season? Last year it was Garfield, now it's going to be Best Western Incorporated.
I guess.
Garfield was our enemy?
If you paid attention to the lore, also though, How do you feel after you've like slain the Baylor or the zombies, and then you like snap back to reality and you realize you killed either a Wendy's general manager or several just random families?
Then I think for damage control purposes, you want to be at the Wendy's.
I will simply double down and refuse to believe that I have killed regular people.
Just like real Dungeoneers.
Wake up. Wake up. Wake up.
We're talking about dungeons, everybody. Hey everybody, welcome to the Nat One Podcast, aka Nope, because nope, you're not gonna want to hear what we're about to have to say. I'm Pertuset.
I'm Levi.
And I'm Jordan.
Yeah, this is the dungeon episode.
If you could tell through all that, we're not talking about Wendy's and Best Westerns and Waffle Houses. Maybe.
We are?
Even though we did for like 5 minutes there.
Went too deep into the bit.
It's a great way to start off the new year, guys.
Yeah, welcome back to the new year of Nat One. Newt One, New Year, Nat Year Podcast.
New year, new one.
True.
New year, new Nat. Let's go with a G.
They made a new one?
Yeah.
But yeah.
It is the second one ever. The second ever Nat.
How do you guys feel about dungeoneering in 5th edition generally?
Well,
I have never played a class optimized for it, so not a huge fan.
That's the thing is, our group, we've done a couple dungeons. But I don't think we've done... I think the general idea of, like, classic Dungeons & Dragons is party starts a quest, they do all the quest hooks for, like, a session or two, quest hooks lead them to a dungeon of some kind. Early game, usually they're smaller. Mid-game to late game, they're larger. They do the dungeon, they find the MacGuffin or whatever it is they need from the dungeon while also acquiring loot along the way. And that's like an arc. That's like an arc. I think that's like classic D&D idea of what Dungeons and Dragons is. And we don't do that. I don't think we've ever done that wholly in that sense, where like that has been an entire set of story just leading up to a dungeon, and then the dungeon being the end of that section of story. Usually the way I've done it, at least, because I've done dungeons that are from adventure books. Pertuset has made homebrew dungeons.
Yeah.
Usually they don't necessarily... They're not encapsulated as their own little stories. They fit into everything else overarching. So when you get out of them, it doesn't feel like, okay, now we're moving on to the next thing. It's like, okay, that was part of what we've been doing for like the last month in game, and we are going to continue along this path now. This was just step 3 of 7. So we've had a different experience in our circle than a lot of groups.
I also think a lot of us are too attached to our characters to do proper dungeon delving, because I feel like for old school D&D, everyone knows the joke about old school D&D of having a stack of the same character sheet and just like ripping off the top one and throwing it away. This is like when your character dies and then you change the first letter and like now you're just the same character but a different name, and it's this character's like 4th brother. Instead, I think a lot of us get too attached to our characters to properly meat grind, or in Dylan's case, does not like rolling characters, so he doesn't want to lose his current character.
Which is really funny to me that he just hates making character sheets. That's his kryptonite for D&D, is threaten Dylan to make a new character sheet, he'll immediately fold.
Yeah.
I don't know. In general, I kind of get it. I don't know. It's a tough situation. Because on one hand, I as when I was a player and we were doing dungeons, I enjoyed the like, ooh, what's gonna happen? What could happen when I go in this room? I might find some really cool, valuable treasury stuff. But also I might fight some enemies, and it's cool because I'll have to like resource management really well. And as a rogue, it was pretty easy to resource manage pretty well. I didn't have any except HP. That was it. However, there's also the sentiment of like, uh-oh, I walked into the no-no room. My character's dead. Because we did the 2 most dangerous dungeons possible.
The first dungeon I ever ran because I was brilliant. Listen to this, everyone. I'm so genius in my what's the word I'm looking for?
Hubris.
Yes. In my hubris as a DM, I was like, you know what? I want to run the Tomb of Horrors because that's a good idea. And then I watched a couple videos on the Tomb of Horrors and I was like, okay, but I'm going to try to dumb it down a little bit. Not dumb it down. That makes it sound like I was trying to make it like easier for my players. I was trying to make it so it wouldn't TPK them.
Baby-proof the Tomb of Horrors.
Yeah. I think I did a decent job because I believe only one person died.
Yeah. Lelaranus died.
So, did a decent job of that. But at the same time, I think everyone came out of that dungeon with the same opinion, as well as myself as the DM, which was just like, why? Why did you make this, Gary Gygax? It wasn't fun, even after I baby-proofed it, because it just felt like I'm going to walk in this next room and die.
Because Gary Gygax hated his players and wanted to kill his friends.
That's what the entire dungeon felt like.
Girlgax is superior.
Yeah.
And then
do it to us.
I ran Tomb of Annihilation. I didn't do the adventure leading up to it. I just did the tomb, the dungeon part. And I share the sentiment that a lot of other people who have run both, I believe, from what I've seen on like Reddit and stuff, that Tomb of Annihilation is just better Tomb of Horrors that feels much more like a dungeon that's a dungeon and not a death trap built to just kill people. It feels much more like, okay, you actually have a suitable chance of solving these puzzles and surviving everything. And there's no giant black mouth portals that just instantly kill you if you walk in them.
Steamroller room.
There is a steamroller room in the Tomb of Annihilation.
I don't think we ever found it, though.
We just dodged
it. No, you did. I
did?
remember Taryn got steamrolled. But it's because the one in the Tomb of Annihilation does not just instantly kill people.
Okay.
Like the one in the Tomb of Horrors does. It does like just a ludicrous amount of damage. But you guys were also pretty high level when you ran it. I think you were like level
17.
Was it 17? Was it that far?
It was really late game.
You guys had a good chunk of health, so like I think it was like the 10d10 or something that it didn't kill Taryn in one hit. So he just like got up and ran out of the room before it could come back around. But yeah.
Because the one in Horrors took down 2 people.
The one in Horrors, it just stipulates in the text, there is no damage. It just instantly kills people. That's what it does. So yeah, there isn't, I remember specifically because it was the room that Taryn got a gem from that he needed for a really high level homebrew spell that he was making, that he needed that as the valuable component for the spell. And that's the room it was in. And that was a completely optional room that he had to go to, but he did. He also got rolled. And I believe Pertuset went in there with him too, because I for some reason remember Victor being in there and then being like, Star Wars, I have a bad feeling about this, and getting out before the steamroller came through and then like laughing at Taryn.
Maybe. It sounds like something I'd do.
It does.
Because remember it was this is kind of going on a tangent, but remember it was the room with the statue, the gargoyle statue, and it crushed the gems in its hand?
I do remember
and that was the way that you opened the path to the final gem, which was the like big boy gem that was really powerful, and that's the one that Taryn needed.
I believe you.
Oh, I think it's happening to me again. Oh no.
Oh no.
I've lost audio.
Oh no, he's gone.
I'm gonna help me.
He's trapped in the pocket dimension, everyone. You'll have to like and subscribe if you want to free him.
Oh, okay, I'm back.
Share this video with your friends if you want to get him out of the pocket dimension.
I'm back.
You did it. Thanks.
Yay!
Yay! If you didn't, he's back in it now.
Yep, get back in the pocket
dimension. I don't know. See, my problem. This is actually very relevant because for the other group that I DM for, they just started their first ever dungeon. And
baby's first dungeon.
Yeah, this party I'm talking about is super green. People at home, they have never really played D&D before. I've got them up to level 6 right now. They've been doing a lot of just like combat, RP, traveling across the world, figuring out their own quests and stuff. And now they're doing their first ever dungeon. And so they had a fight beforehand, before they got to the dungeon. And then they went in the dungeon, and they were pretty low because the fight was pretty hard. And they walked in, and I said, okay, you see a hallway? I had a map put out for them, and I said, okay, you see a hallway? There's a door to your left and a door to your right, and at the end of the hall, there's a sconce. And one of them's like, oh, I want to go put my torch in the sconce. And I was like, oh, okay, you're going to go to it? And he was like, yeah. I was like, all right, I need to know who is near you and who's not. And one of them was like, I'm at the front, I'm at the back at the entrance, and another one's like, I'm right next to the guy that's going to the sconce. And I was like, okay, a pressure plate gets pushed and a ceiling tile falls down on you. And then I rolled 2d12, and I was like, yeah, you take 10 damage, and that killed one of them.
Oh no!
Because of the fight they had beforehand.
Oh.
They got saved because one of them is a paladin. But they were a little upset. They were immediately scarred, and they were like, I think we need to have a long rest outside. I don't know. Dungeons are... I don't know. To me, dungeons are literally an exercise in patience for everyone involved.
Yes. It's a good measuring stick for the patience of a group.
Just how long are you willing to get slapped in the face by traps and enemies? And do you think it's personally worth it at the end to get all the treasure and defeat whatever's at the end?
And I also think that just like the game itself, well, not just like the game itself, the game itself, not just like the game itself, but talking about the game itself, it's evolved over the years because Dungeons and Dragons, definitely with the advent of Critical Role, I think a lot more emphasis has been put on the storytelling and
the dragons part.
The and part.
The and part, the ampersand.
The building of the characters and their individual stories and how they mesh together as a group. And that side of D&D, the role-playing side of D&D, has become a lot more prevalent in recent years. Whereas when the game first started, especially, I think everything pre 3.5 edition especially, much more heavily catered towards the game is you make a character and you guys are going to go into a dungeon and beat the dungeon. That's the game. Do it. That's how you have fun. And that's how people had fun, was they went in with the expectation they were going to go into a dangerous dungeon and beat it. And 3.5 began, I think, a long trend of catering a lot more towards, well, actually, you could do some interesting stuff with your character, too. You can make a fun little character. You can make a fun little, or a really cool little character. And we began to move more towards that trend, moving into the 21st century of Dungeons and Dragons. So I feel like, obviously, dungeons still have their place. They're literally half of the name of the game. They're a staple of the TTRPG. But at the same time, I feel like they've definitely lost a lot of the original significance they've had in the game.
Jordan, you've been a player through both campaigns of Dungeons. What have you thought about the dungeoneering experience?
See, I have mixed feelings because almost every time that we've done a dungeon, I have been playing a character that does not benefit from short rests at all. So the first time I played a cleric, and this was a homebrew subclass cleric, so even if there's stuff that clerics do gain from a short rest, I did not have that because I'm very stupid and I don't know how to homebrew things. So I was getting really frustrated then with the having to ration. I already rationed my spells pretty bad, but being all right, do we the whole do we save Simonius or Leiluranis thing still pisses me off because we should not have had to choose because that situation was so dumb. Because that's what happened in the steamroller room. We had two players that died in the steamroller room. And so with the time constraints, the rest of us were in a different part of the Tomb of Horrors while the two of them were doing whatever the hell they were doing in the steamroller room. And so we get to both of them with 10 seconds left in the minute before you can't revive people anymore. So it was a coin flip for who got saved, which spawned the meme of, save Leiluranis. I will revive Simonius. And then being a barbarian and not being able to get rages back on a short rest also annoys the snot out of me. So like I see the narrative function that they pose, and I think that if done right, which I think that we have done them right every time because they have been fun every time, but I am also a very big like role play lover as opposed to combat lover. So that's also the difference of I'm like once we're like 3 or 4 combats and I'm like, okay, can we just talk now? Like can I just talk my way out of the dungeon, please? Yeah. So yeah, that's my incoherent take on dungeons.
I'll tell you one. There's one dungeon that I did love as a player, despite it smacking me in the face several times. And honestly, it was the Death House.
Oh,
the Death House was fun.
I forgot
Death
we
House
played
was fun. We did. That was fun.
Yeah, I was thinking about it.
All 3 of us were players in that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when no one in this circle DM'd that. That was an outside DM.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a room over DM for one of us, but
he's literally like right through that door.
Yeah. But man, I'll be honest. I really of all the ones that I've played, I thought I really liked the Death House.
Death House was fun.
It was just so. I mean, I know that it did in fact kill me for a minute,
Mm-hmm.
but it was still just really fun because it felt like a deserved death as well. It didn't feel like I just stepped in a room and died.
Yeah, it felt like there were plausible solutions to not die, but also like it made sense if you were gonna bite it because you fucked up. Like
I'll never forget trying to leave. Spoilers for Curse of Strahd, everybody. Trying to leave, and I had to go down all the stairs, and there was suddenly traps between each stairway.
Saw blades.
Yeah, and I was playing a paladin, and it was like, okay, you're gonna have to do dex saves, and I looked at my like +0 dex stat, and I was like, gulp. And so like I made it through 2, and then at the very last one, my guy got hit, and just like someone else had made it out before me, and so they just turn around and see my limp body fall down the stairwell. And I was like, yeah, I basically made it out. That means
technically
drag me. Oh my gosh, I like Death House a lot. It had a really good balance of traps, intrigue. I think that's might have been what sold it, is that there was so much intrigue before all the trappery started. It didn't just go in and slap me in the face first. It was like, oh, look around. What's wrong? What's going on? And then it tried to kill me. It respected me, you know?
It was the reward for figuring out the mystery was death.
Yeah. Felt like it deserved, earned death.
Yeah.
Earned death.
Oh, I'm in the dang death mines, mining a gallon of death.
I do think that this also speaks to a problem of 5th edition in general, which is the fact that, again, we've talked about this several times on this podcast, but as people that play in primarily 5th edition, we would prefer to not. We have played in 5th edition so long that we look at 3.5 and also systems like Pathfinder, and we're like, whoa, look at that. That's cool. They should have more stuff like that in 5th edition. Because 5th edition was successfully Wizards' attempt to sell D&D to a much broader audience by simplifying a lot of stuff in D&D, and it was very successful. D&D is a lot more popular now than it was, I'd say, like 10 years ago. But now, I'd also argue that now there are a lot of people who got into it because of 5th edition, like us, who now thoroughly understand the game and are like, okay, but I could do with just a little bit more complexity now. Like, I can understand it. I got it. And that's the thing of, like, some classes just have no benefits to short rests at all. That's stupid. Yeah. Every class should have some benefit to a short rest so that there is a reason for parties to take short rests universally and everyone can get something back and feel beneficial from it. Instead of it, people could argue, oh, well, everyone gets at least health back, but like still, you should get.
Once you run out of hit dice, no, you don't. That's the other thing.
Too.
Like if you're I would call Hades technically a dungeon. Like that was the closest thing to a dungeon that I think we've done. Like one of the because Pygmalion was also a dungeon, but I think Hades qualifies as a dungeon. Yeah, that was the thing that we were running into of like people being like, we need to take a short rest, and then the people that kept getting hit were like, I ran out of hit dice like. Like two
short rests back. Where had it nice. Yeah, so yes, that like every spellcaster should have some method of getting spell slots back on a short rest. Not all of them, obviously, but just I know it would take a little bit away from the wizard if you gave everyone an arcane recovery, but at the same time, I feel like every spellcaster should have something similar to that in some regard. Whereas, like, instead of arcane recovery for like paladins and clerics, it could be called like divine recovery or something.
There is an alternate feature for clerics. I think that you can get a spell slot back, but it's a channel divinity.
Paladins have that as well, yes. Which I do enjoy because I also, I'm not sure, I think you can get your channel divinities back on short rests. If you can't, that should be the thing. It's been a while since I've had to use my channel divinity in game, so I'm not sure. It might be a long rest, but that's something easily that you could give to clerics and paladins. Give them their channel divinity on a short rest, and then they can pick if they use that option. They can pick and be like, do I want to use this for its purpose, or do I want to funnel it into my spell slots? Something like that. Every class should have something that they get on, because also dungeons heavily benefit from people taking short rests within them. So that would make dungeons a lot more prevalent again, I think, in modern D&D, if you made short rests just more viable across the board for everyone.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that.
Because you could long rest in a dungeon. You could. But generally, I feel like most DMs, if you long rest in a dungeon, are going to be like, okay, what am I throwing at them? Because they're long resting in the middle of this dungeon. Yeah.
Nighttime ambush.
It's much more, the Darkest Dungeon type beat. Nighttime ambush. But short rests are much more viable because it's just 1 hour. And like people can stay vigilant and be on the lookout for anything that's coming at you the entire time, instead of it being like, well, actually 2/3 of the party is going to be asleep, so only 2 of us are going to be on watch. And also, if we both roll bad, oops, like we're getting surprised.
Oopsies.
So, I do like the puzzle solving element of most dungeons. I'll say that much.
That I don't think will ever lose its what do you want to call it? Appeal. Puzzle solving in dungeons is always fun, I think, as well. I mean, there's not much you can change about that formula. Just put a good puzzle in a dungeon, and then like bing bang boom, there you go. You got entertainment in the dungeon.
Or good relative to how smart your players are.
Yes, that too.
You see all those memes about like me using a coloring book for 3rd graders to get inspiration.
Riddles for kindergartners.
Yeah, they still can't figure it out.
But then there's also like sometimes puzzles in dungeons, especially overcomplicated ones, give you some of your most creative player moments, at least me as a DM seeing that. And then even if it's not right, sometimes you're just like, what if I just gave that to him?
You gotta reward the creativity.
Like, I know this for a fact because I was told after the fact, in the Pygmalion dungeon, we did a thing that was not the solution at all, but Pertuset was like, that was so creative, I'm just gonna give it to you. And let us do it.
That was the calm emotions thing that I thought of, because I did, that was, because what was the thing that we were fighting?
It was like 3 big flesh golem things, I think, and there was this whole poem before the entire dungeon that we had that we could read out, and we had interpreted through some lines of the poem that we weren't supposed to fight them, we were supposed to befriend them.
Yeah.
And then that would win the encounter. So
it's the one time my befriend strategy has ever worked.
So we basically used magic to calm them down in the moment, and then Pertuset was like, it works! You've succeeded! And then later he was like, that was not the solution at all, you were just supposed to kill them.
Yeah.
I almost forgot. Yeah, because I texted you in the middle of one of my classes because I was thinking in the middle of class, and then I'm all caps like, Levi, I figured it out!
I'd forgotten about that, but yeah, because the whole thing, this dungeon that I made was, the enemy was Pygmalion, if anyone knows the myth about Pygmalion, but it wasn't like super based on Pygmalion. It was like Pygmalion if he were a lich, because now he like uses human bodies to craft his stuff. And so the whole dungeon was like a person. It was all based on like organs and like anatomy. That was the whole like theme. Dungeon. Yeah, that was the theme of this dungeon. And at the end, like there was one big like message in the center of the dungeon, and every single puzzle was supposed to be solved with this one text. And I worked really hard to come up with a way to get everything solved with it. And then at one point, I was looking for certain rhymes. I was looking for things with certain letters because there was also a cipher in the text as well. And so I had to put a thing in. Or I put a thing in there that said like something befriend or something like that. And then they took that to mean to actually befriend, but it was just something that fit my cipher. And then I was like, well, you know what? That fits the text. So you take the dub. Here you go. Here's a W for you.
Exactly. That's something that I like about Dungeons as a DM is it does, especially in Dungeons like Tomb of Horrors where it's overly complicated for no reason, and so everyone spends so much time trying to figure stuff out and they're not the correct answer at all. But as the DM, you're like, that would be interesting if it was the right answer though, so I'm gonna give it to them. It lets you do things like that, which I enjoy. I enjoy allowing players to express their creativity.
It's true. I respect your guys' intelligence too much to give you kindergarten puzzles, though, so that's why I gave you the Mile and Sheath puzzle instead.
The damn Mile and Sheath puzzle.
Everyone remember the Mile and Sheath puzzle?
Is that the one where Dylan started trying to do biochemistry to solve that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Where we started like trying to use our real world meta intelligence to be like, how does this work?
It was very funny. That's the other thing I enjoy about puzzle solving in D&D widely is like I think most people are way too tempted of a good time with a puzzle to sometimes even roleplay their character. Now don't get me wrong, sometimes there will be people that can control themselves and be like, well, as much as I love puzzles and I know the answer to this puzzle, my character's dumb, so I'm not going to do anything to solve it. That can happen. I personally get way too invested and I'm like, I need to solve this puzzle right now because my title as puzzle solver extraordinaire is on the line
it's at stake
right now. Yeah. So I'm way too invested in trying to solve something in first or second attempt and be like, haha, look at my genius and tremble. And then everyone's like, you ruined the dungeon, buddy.
No. See, no, that's when you're playing a stupid character and you know the answer, so you just have to reverse engineer it and say it so incorrectly that no one possibly knows what you mean. So technically you've solved it, but you just talk in gibberish, so it doesn't matter and it still fits with your stupid fucking character. I've never done that. I don't know what you're talking about.
What? You'd never, Jordan. You would never do that.
But yeah. I'm also a huge fan, personally, of dungeons that do not at all look like dungeons or seem like dungeons.
That's true, too. Those are quite entertaining.
Escape rooms.
No. The first ever dungeon that I consider a dungeon that I ran for you guys was when you went through the forest that first time.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to do that so bad because I was like, this isn't a dungeon at all. It doesn't look like a dungeon. It's a dang forest. It's woods. But guess what? It played like a dungeon.
It's the most lethal woods on the planet.
Mm-hmm. There were rooms. There were monsters and traps between the rooms and in the rooms. It was a dungeon for all rights and purposes. It didn't look like one.
Do you still have that Minecraft map?
No.
No, seriously?
It was on my old computer.
No! I don't think we've ever talked about that. Because the dungeon that he's talking about, there's a forest in Pertuset's homebrew world that is like ultra deadly and terrifying. And the way that we played this, he didn't just make like an incarnate map. He shared his screen and went through a Minecraft map that he built of the forest, and it was the coolest freaking thing.
It was to scale.
It was very neat.
The only problem with that is while I was making it halfway through, I didn't have the weather controlled and lightning struck and burnt down half the forest, so I had to rebuild it.
Oh no!
Just like real life.
It was fun though. I even learned how to change the FOV and stuff in or all that. What is it like? I put like a blur or not a blur. What is that? Like darkness on the characters. That way you guys can only see like 5 feet in front of you, pretty much. That was fun. Just way too much effort. So I got a 3D map. But yeah. All in all, I think I prefer the dragons to the dungeons, but
yeah.
Our group is more if we're using dragons as an analogy for roleplay. Our group is more centered around what you're shaking your head. No, what are you using?
I think he just means the dragons.
Just dragons in general. You just prefer dragons.
I agree with the metaphor, though. Continue, Levi. The analogy.
We've always been a little bit more centered around RP in our group. I mean, it doesn't help, I think, that we started with no rules and no system. So the part that we enjoyed and thought about the most was the interacting with other characters and enjoying the story over the mechanics of the game. Because then once we had actual mechanics, it was like, oh, this is great. We have actual mechanics now. But like, we're still looking forward to the stuff that we did like the first time around as well. That was the enjoyable part of the first time around too. So from the beginning, I think we've been a little bit more accustomed to role playing as a side of Dungeons and Dragons.
Gosh darn theater kids.
If that speaks to our upbringing as young, bright Gen Z children, I don't know.
Wait, what if we just restructure our thinking? What if the dungeons is the RP?
What if the dungeons are the friends we made along the way?
Exactly, though. Think about it. A dungeon's filled with traps and enemies. What is not the greatest thing filled with traps and enemies, if not your own personal mind and convictions? Think about it.
I'm thinking about it, all right.
All I'm saying is the greatest dungeon that my character Victor ever went through was him coming to terms with not killing several children.
I thought it was when you got your gender and alignment flipped.
No, that was not
from the Tomb of Horrors.
No, he did not. That was not. That was by all intents and purposes cosmetic.
What did Gygax mean by this when he made the room this, which is your gender and alignment?
He wanted to emasculate people.
Probably.
Or effeminate people? I don't know. Girl gax?
Girl gax.
Maybe that's what he was trying to summon her. He wanted to go in the room.
It's his master plan this entire time. He just needs someone to make the Tomb of Horrors in real life.
Forever DM's woes, though. He never got to play it.
Yep.
What about real world dungeons, though? Not like medieval ones, but like what's a place that is a real world dungeon like we were talking about at the beginning?
Escape rooms.
Yeah?
Well, yes. That's the most obvious answer, I think. The most real answer.
Also laser tag.
True. Truing.
PvP dungeon.
I think Ikea could be considered a dungeon.
Oh, most definitely.
See that one SCP about the infinite or the terrifying Ikea.
Infinite Ikea.
All Ikeas are terrifying and infinite. What do you mean?
They're all one giant SCP that's just connected back.
I think Ikea and Waffle House were like spawned from the same entity, because I also believe that there is just one Ikea and all doors lead into the same Ikea, like Waffle House.
They're all spawned by Sweden.
Ikea, Waffle House, Minecraft.
Mm-hmm.
Long ago, the 30 Nation.
Long before time.
Changed when Paradox Interactive attacked.
There is no war in Olive Garden.
Huh? I'm just here to dungeon, man.
You're
no
not dragon?
No. That's it. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to ritual cast Arcane Eye to look through the entirety of the IKEA. And I'm not going to move from this spot until I know every map of the IKEA.
Yeah,
thanks, Simonius.
They did that to me.
Which
was fine.
It
was fine.
It was brilliant.
It was good. It was smart on their part, but like, it took a while.
Get Arcane Eye on. Oh. Any more dungeon thoughts?
Map out the entire dungeon for them.
I think that our listeners need to know about the time that Dylan fought a Sirac with no gear, because that is still a landmark moment from Vivia 2.
Why was he naked?
I think he got something that zapped all of his stuff.
Did he?
Yeah, because there was the paladin got rust monstered, but then he also, I don't know if it was a rust monster or if it was something else, but he lost all of his shit from another trap.
I remember there was the statue that caused the paladin to lose all their stuff.
I definitely remember that he was naked. I just don't remember what did it.
He had a really low AC.
I don't know,
because
man.
he had a -2 dex. His character's thing was that he had a limp because his leg got like stabbed really bad before the campaign.
Mm-hmm.
So he had a -2 dex. So his base AC without armor was 8.
Yeah.
I think he had 9 because I think he had something.
He was
still
wearing a
left
ring
over.
of protection.
Ring of protection.
Yes.
Yep.
So he had an AC of 9.
But everything else was gone. He didn't have any other gear.
I don't know how he lost it. I can't remember.
We'll have to ask him and see if he remembers. I mean, I could probably also skim the Tomb of Annihilation and see if I can remember or find like a room.
Mm-hmm. I'll just never forgive Taryn for that dang tomb.
Tomb of Horrors or Annihilation?
Annihilation.
What did he
Oh,
do?
I thought you meant funnies.
No.
I don't remember what he did. It's been so long.
First off, this part actually I do forgive him for because it was kind of funny when he tried to go across he tried to go across a gap by just like freezing and unfreezing a chair, which somehow he could do. I don't even remember the details of that.
Right, because they had a stupid homebrew spell that was you could make a chair in like a space in the air around you, and then after that I got rid of that homebrew spell after that.
The other thing, but the thing I won't forgive him for is because of that boy's dang interest in Aboleths, I got mega cucked.
Oopsie.
I very well could have lost my character there because of Taryn.
Was that Tomb of Annihilation or was that under Finral's house?
I think that was Annihilation because then we went into that gear puzzle that you said was impossible to solve.
I didn't remember. I couldn't remember if you got, to quote you, mega cucked in Tomb of Annihilation or under Finral's house. I couldn't remember which one it was. I just knew it happened in
Taryn swears that the one that screwed everybody up was the one under Finral's house, but I'm pretty sure that that was the one that was derpy.
No, I will say the one in Tomb of Annihilation is the one that has 2 personalities. That it's literally like a coin flip at random times, depending on when the adventure states that it's like, oh, now it's evil and malevolent and wants to kill everyone, and now it's a child. Now it has the brain of a child. Because
I know we interacted with both, and I don't remember the outcome of.
I remember the one in the Tomb of Annihilation is the one that mega cucked me. I don't remember what happened with the one in Finral's house.
I don't either. I personally thought the one in the Tomb of Annihilation, that was the one where you put Taryn in the box and put him in the water, and then like he got stuck only being able to breathe water.
Yeah, and then we pulled him up, and then the Aboleth got me.
Did it?
Yeah, we pulled him up, and we were like chatting there, and then the Aboleth like zooped me.
Okay.
Right there. And because then that's when Saladin showed up, was like right after that.
Yes.
And
and he tried to follow the thing.
Yeah.
All the way back into
through the tunnels. Lair.
Yep. That was fun.
Oh hey, I found the Stone Juggernaut again, the secret room with the Stone Juggernaut that crushed Taryn.
I think what we're talking about.
Yes, the gear puzzle is definitely the worst part of the Tomb of Annihilation.
I don't think we actually solved it.
No, you did not, because I just gave it to you for free because Dylan wasn't there for a session. So what I said was that Saladin like skipped ahead of you guys because you got split up briefly, and he just solved the puzzle. That was like what he did the entire session that you guys were doing other stuff. Was he solved the puzzle?
It was nice.
I'm looking for anything that talks about getting rid of armor, and I don't see it here anywhere.
It may have just been the same rust monster. I don't remember.
Maybe
he was just naked for funsies.
Maybe.
Don't put it past him.
That could also sound like Saladin. That does sound like Saladin.
Extra level of challenge.
Automakers.
We can out time, but dungeoning. Any other last dungeon points about dungeon?
Hold on, I do, but I don't know if I'm frozen. Crap.
Oh.
Sorry, my Wi-Fi is like completely freaking out, and I don't know what's going on.
I'm gonna just like scream. Oh, okay. I was gonna like scream while you were frozen and hope it would make a really funny audio clip of like la 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 la. Like,
I think that we probably do need to mention the Terran Tomb of Funnies, even though we haven't played it yet. It is hanging over our heads. And I am
like
scared.
a dang, what's that thing we talked about recently?
Sword of Damocles.
Oh yeah.
The sword of Damocles is swinging over my head.
Yes, Terran. So in my most recent campaign that I DM'd, which I say most recent, but it's been like almost over a. Has it been like how?
It's been over a year.
It's been over a year. It's been over a year since we played it, and it was a 1 to 20 campaign, so everyone was level 20 by the end. And Terran, who went through 3 characters, his final character became a level 20 wizard at the end of this campaign, and so he decided that what he wanted to have his character do after what happened post-campaign was that they were going to build an entire tomb, quote unquote, for that character, which would be their final resting place. But because the character was kind of a little goofster, a creature,
accurate.
He was like, it's going to be called the Tomb of Funnies. Not the Tomb of Funny, not the funniest tomb, the Tomb of Funnies.
There are several of them.
And the entire tomb, I have given Terran the liberty to make anything he wants, so long as it's not lethal. So he has just constructed a series of elaborate pranks, essentially, in each room in this tomb that cannot kill people, but which he thinks, and myself to an extent, are very funny. And it's just going to be this is going to take place in the 3rd campaign I DM. The party is going to have to go through this tomb to retrieve something at the end or something like that. And they're just going to have to experience it. And every passing day that we do not play this 3rd campaign, which, because we are currently playing in a campaign that Pertuset's DMing, more gets added to this tomb. It gets longer. It gets increasingly more complicated. More convoluted pranks are added.
It gets funnier.
In true Terran fashion, it is equal parts brilliant and demented.
Yes. Such joys in this tomb can be found as the chimp room, the room, and what's another good one? What's the third?
The bathroom.
The bathroom.
What's the amputation room?
The amputation room. Do bear in mind, remember, audience, all of these are non-lethal. So think of what you will with the titles of the rooms.
Oh, don't forget the gift shop. You gotta remember the gift shop.
At the very end. There is a gift shop as well, yeah. With t-shirts.
I know that.
But yes, I felt like it was wrong to finish talking about dungeons and not talk about Terran's masterpiece for a moment.
That's a good idea for you players and DMs at home. Try making a dungeon without any seriousness. Make a dungeon that just tests your players', I don't know, level of goofiness.
Patience.
Sanity.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Make something that doesn't harm them, but just literally just disrespects them. They'll be for a good laugh, as long as it's with everyone's consent.
Just remember your patron trickster god and his motto. It would be funny, I think.
Truing. And if you have other dungeon ideas that we didn't talk about or cover in this episode, or you have stories of dungeons that you wish to share, like how you died in the death house, or didn't die in the death house, or if you horrored in the tomb, or annihilated in the tomb, let us know in the comments below or somewhere else. We're also on Twitter, I think. It's a new year, so I'm not
Spotify,
sure.
but you can't say anything on there. You can't give us feedback on Spotify.
But you can on TikTok.
You can on
That's
TikTok.
true.
You could just verbally say it if you're listening on Spotify. We just won't hear you.
That's also true.
But we'll
you could,
pretend we're listening.
Yeah, you could also just make your own podcast, or make make a podcast that's reacting to our podcast.
A podcast in response to our podcast.
The reaction the Nat One reaction podcast.
Norp.
And then we'll collab.
Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking just call it the Nat One podcast. No pee-pee.
No.
And I think that's a good spot to end this episode.
No pee-pee.
Bye, everybody.
No pee-pee.
Hey, We hope you enjoyed the episode you just listened to. If you really like our content, make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications on YouTube, and look for us on Spotify. If you'd like to see us continuing to do more fun projects in the future, consider supporting us on Patreon. You can find our page linked in the description above all of our other social media links. And finally, if you'd like to keep up with the zany shenanigans of our lives and check out some more skit-based content and things like that, check us out on Twitter and TikTok, links in the description. And hey, thanks!